Welcome to the Sports Phenom Show for week number 7 of your MLS action, where I have another 3 MLS best bets for you to take advantage of. Already through 6 weeks, folks, I'm kicking some serious butt with an 11-5, 70% record. More than solid, to say the least. I think it's fair to say, and I continue to prove why I am the number one capper and professional sports bettor on the planet. No matter what sport I do, I win. And by following me, you will not only make money, but you will save money. And I'm going to be the only source you will ever need by doing so. Quick recap of last week's results before I get to your 3 best bets once again for this week. As mentioned, I did it again last week, getting the job done, going 2-1 overall. Winners on Toronto FC. I told you home field advantage would work in their favor, winless or not. They would at least draw in this game, and that's exactly what they did against the Vancouver Whitecaps, whom I told you had more than tired legs heading into this game, playing on an average of 2 games per week with their Champions Cup games. Also a 5-hour flight for Vancouver in this one. So even though they're off to a very hot start, they've looked extremely skilled out of the gate and have built up some very solid chemistry. You can't do much against tired legs. They still were probably the better team, but in the end, you got to be smart in how you go about your wagers, folks. And this was a very smart play on Toronto FC that got us our first win of the weekend. Then we also had a win on Inter Miami, which was never in doubt, getting the job done early and often, as Inter Miami got to an early 2-0 lead against Philadelphia, held on for a 2-1 lead. Messi scoring once again. They overtook Philadelphia now for that first and top spot in the Eastern Conference. I told you that was the added incentive motivation for Inter Miami in that game. You give them something to play for, and they are going to show up. And with first place lurking and only Philadelphia standing in their way, that gave them the exact motivation they needed and was perfect for the Pickens for us to take advantage of that second winner on Inter Miami. Our only loss came on LAFC. A bit disappointing there. They lost their third in their last 4 games. They might actually be having a bit of the same issues as Vancouver, with tired legs playing in the Champions Cup. But that's no argument for Inter Miami, who got the job done. I thought they would also be able to get the job done, especially against a weaker expansion San Diego FC, and the rivalry now that's going to build between those two interstate rivals. But even though they were able to come back in this game down 3-0 and made it 3-2, in the end, it was just too much to come back from. San Diego got up early, were strong throughout, and deserved the win. So in the end, again, as mentioned, bottom line, all that matters is getting in the win column, cashing the tickets, and picking up the profits, which now puts us, as mentioned earlier, at an 11-5 mark, 70% on the season. Now let's get to my 3 best bets here for MLS Week 7. And the first game I want us to take a look at, by the way, the games that I'm looking at are all going to be on Sunday, April the 6th. Nothing on Saturday that stood out to me, but the Sunday games did. And that first one is going to be on New York City at home, hosting against Minnesota. Now let's take a look at where these two teams stand currently. New York City, the home team in this game, 2-2-2, respectively, after their first 6 games. And this, unfortunately for them, puts them outside of the playoffs early in the season. in 10th position. I think for all the playoff teams, non-playoff teams, that is, thus far, this early in the season, they are by far the best non-playoff team against Minnesota, who's off to a quality start, 3-2-1, that has them in 4th in the Western Conference. But something really stood out to me when I took a look at both of these two teams' schedules. First off, New York, a perennial in force at home. If you look at their schedule, they lost the first game to LAFC on the road. They also lost their last game on the road in Atlanta. So 2 of the losses right off the bat were on the road. One of their 2 draws was against Columbus, also on the road. And their other match, also on the road, a draw. The only 2 that they've had at home have both been wins. Coming in week 3 against Orlando City, and also in week 4 at home against New England. So right off the bat, you know they're a very tough team to beat at home, and they've had some decent opposition, especially against Orlando City in that win back in week 3. Now, Minnesota, on the other hand, as mentioned, 4th in the Western Conference, has probably had one of the easier schedules of all the teams in the league, winning their first game against a CF Montreal team that remains unbeaten at this point of the season through 6 games. Then they went on the road to play the San Jose Earthquakes, who were the last place team last year, and barely squeaked out a 1-0 win there. In their last game, they were at home against Real Salt Lake, who's currently sitting in 11th in the Western Conference. So they haven't had the greatest of starts. And they've also had 2 draws against LA Galaxy, who still hasn't won a game, 13th in the Western Conference. And they also drew in Sporting Kansas City, who's also winless. So, folks, who have they beat? Nobody. Who have they played? Nobody. This is screaming New York City all the way to the bank for me. Again, they're a tough team to beat at home. Minnesota's played nobody. This is a perfect spot that we have to take advantage and to take New York City in what is an absolute gift of a line. You can get them on the pick line at a very reasonable price, so I'm all over that. New York City on the pick here in this one. Don't be surprised if they get this one done and get it done pretty easily. At worst, if they do draw, Minnesota pulls one out of their butt, which I don't see happening, then we're at worst going to draw in this game, folks. So it's a very solid bet on New York City FC. Next game, and this is going to be a rare side and total selection for me as I look at the game with Inter Miami hosting Toronto FC. I've been all over these Inter Miami games, and I've taken a few of the Toronto FC games too. I'm getting a good feel for both of these teams, one on top of the Eastern Conference and one at the bottom in the basement. And I love that. It just makes me feel like I know where both of these two teams are headed in complete different directions, and I expect that to remain the same after this game. Now, I know Inter Miami's playing those Champions Cup games, but as you've seen, unlike other teams where it affects them, Miami hasn't done that much flight time, so it's really benefiting them to have these home games, and especially against the basement squad of Toronto FC with no confidence right now. This looks like another absolute gift here on Inter Miami to get the job done. But let's take a closer look. We also have the total here. Toronto FC did come off a better performance last week against Vancouver, and that was one of my picks last week. We talked about it. And I do believe, even though my pick is going to be Inter Miami on the side, that Toronto FC is starting to turn things around and is going to be a much better team than their record shows. This is a team that has gone through a lot of injuries to start the season. They have a brand new head coach. They have a brand new system in play. They didn't have their star player, Lorenzo Insigne, even part of the first 2 games. He's now been put back into the squad, but in a different position. So that's still in the works of trying to get some chemistry throughout the team. Then you have a brand new forward they got, Norwegian player Ola, who's been injured and also had to deal with getting back into shape. He did come into the game last week and showed some excellent signs of what's to come of once they get him incorporated into a full game and playing alongside with Bernadeschi up front. So there are things to look forward to, but they still continue to have a plethora of injury scenarios where center back Kevin Long is questionable. Richie Laurea, one of their star defenders, also is questionable. He hasn't played in the last few weeks. Then you have midfielder Matthew Longstaff, who has an ankle issue. You also have Zane Manosis with a knee issue. So there's just a ton of injury problems that continue to haunt this Toronto team. I do believe once they get everything together, once they get these injuries taken care of, once there's chemistry built up, and once this team is gelling, they're actually have a good, decent, middle-of-the-pack team. But it's just not the right time, and it's unfortunate. Maybe they'll pick up their first win in the next couple of weeks, but I don't see it happening here against an Inter Miami squad who's just firing on all cylinders once again. Alba, Busquets, Suarez, all looking like they're still perennials of what they used to be from their Barcelona days. Especially got to love what Busquets continues to do in the midfield. Alba, you can always count on him on the back. Suarez, even though he's slowing down, does come up with a decent pass and a big goal when you really need it. So, again, Inter Miami looks like the play here. As for the total, we're going to go with the over here. I know Toronto FC is coming off their first shutout of last weekend, but that was against Vancouver with tired legs. As mentioned, it was bad weather. Here they're going to be in Miami with a solid forecast in play. Should be sun. Should be a lot of nice, clear evening opportunities for this Inter Miami squad to score some goals on this Toronto team. I see that happening. If Toronto can muster up a goal, it's only going to help out the cause here. So Inter Miami and the over to round up my best bets for week number 7. So to conclude my top 3 best bets for MLS Week 7 action, we're going to start it off with the New York City FC. I see them getting the job done easily here in this game. Just as solid. My next play, Inter Miami. They should pile up the goals here against a very weak defensive injury-riddled Toronto FC team. And I like a lot of goals in that Inter Miami Toronto FC game. No reason why Toronto can't get a goal here. Inter Miami's strong point isn't their defense. So let's look for a lot of goals in that game. Those are your 3 best bets. New York City FC, Inter Miami, and Inter Miami Toronto FC over 2.5 goals. Take it to the bank. Let's get it done once again. I am the Phenom. Let's get this money. See ya.